right, let's stay with developments in Parliament this afternoon and continue our conversation with Sysman Motloung, who is still on the line with us. Quite a number of developments this afternoon. You know, one doesn't even know where to begin. But I'd like us to start with this complicated relationship at the end. When you think about the Good Party abstaining, its leader serving in cabinet, of course, at the behest of the president, and Mzwandile trying to understand there if they abstained because the fact that their leader is serving in cabinet also complicates matters. What are your thoughts on how that one played out?
Yeah, definitely, that is also a factor, even though Good is trying to explain it away on the basis that Mr. Ramaphosa is appealing this report to the court, and it would be futile for Parliament to continue with it. For me, Parliament could have continued anyway until such time that the court says to them, you cannot do this, and on what grounds. There's really no certainty on this basis that Parliament might support Mr. Ramaphosa, because Parliament from the onset wanted to go for this independent panel for the same reason that should there be an appeal presented to Parliament, to the court, Parliament can show that in the process of impeachment, they've gone through due diligence. And this was a very important aspect in that process. So Parliament should have stood and defended this process. Now, what Good did, for me, it was mainly what others would suggest, that because of what their leader is doing in cabinet is one of the major aspects that influences their decision.
And talking about explaining away, I was listening to the ANC's chairperson, Gwede Mandashe, saying that 5 members of the ANC voting with the opposition is not significant if you look at the context of what happened with former President Jacob Zuma when his motion of no confidence, of course, was held in Parliament, about 37 members at the time. But it is still significant that the ANC is finding itself here. So surely it cannot be as insignificant as he says it is.
Definitely. I listened to him, and there are 2 ways, maybe, or 3 to look at it. The first one is saying when Mr. Zuma was being impeached and those that spoke up against him, we should look at the context within which Mr. Zuma is now operating as a leader whose influence is really dwindling within the party. And this is what is typical with the ANC. When you are going out of favor, they will now start really standing against you. But now Mr. Ramaphosa is that person who is strong and who is feared, in my view. I think even officials are afraid of him. They are not willing to speak. You cannot compare now those 37 or odd number of people who voted against Zuma against these 5 who are standing against a leader who seems to be strong at this moment. And in that regard, you cannot also undermine it under the basis that in the local municipalities or in provincial legislatures in Northwest, we've seen people voting against the party line, and these people have been disciplined.
Hello?
So it has to be looked in that regard as well, to say, what is the implication of this when they deviate from the party line? It brings that question into purview.
And let's say, Professor Mathebesi, I think you've entered the waiting room. We'll come to you in just a moment. Let's stay with that, Sysman, because it's going to be interesting to see how this one unfolds here. Given the context of where we've seen the ANC find itself in this position in the past, how do you see then that one play out? Because this matter is now being taken into party structures, and they are going to chart a way forward when it comes to these members that voted differently.
Yeah, you look at it, listen to Mr. Ramaphosa in the few months ago when he was talking about this high discipline, high morale, when they talk about restoring the movement or this political party. Therefore, you cannot explain away when such senior people are being disobedient to a party line. This is what they were told to do, and they're not doing it. Are they setting an example for others afterward? To what extent is the ANC really willing to tolerate them? And one could say, if they were willing to tolerate them, it's on that aspect, say, they are old people, more or less already moving out of power. We can let it go. And then even though they voted against us, it did not have a big implication in terms of the outcome.
All
and
right.
then for those who are minor, will now be being enforced to toe the line. It's really the two ways to it. But I think the NC shouldn't be really letting it go for the sake of principle as much as the president has been speaking in the previous months.
All right, let's pause for a second. I'd like to bring in Professor Setulego Mathebesi, who is a political analyst at the University of the Free State. Prof. Mathebesi, thank you so much for your time. Looking at what was said about Parliament in the Zondo Commission, the role that they played and how they should be able to chart a way forward when it comes to accountability, did they rise to the occasion tonight?
Hi, good evening, and good evening to my fellow panelists and the viewers at home. No, it's a very difficult situation in South Africa. And I wrote an opinion piece 3-4 weeks ago about what happened today. I mean, we sometimes blame the African National Congress for taking a decision that opposition parties are also taking. I mean, you've got a situation where the EFF have met, they've taken a stance on this matter. The Democratic Alliance have met and they've taken a stance on this matter. Why should it be, any different for the African National Congress? Perhaps I know what is at stake, and what is at stake is the interest of ordinary South Africans and the public being protected here. I think that is a matter that we should take. And I don't believe that the parties have come to the party to advance the public interest. But for the African National Congress, they will just say that they've also respecting the rules of law, but they want to afford the president, the opportunity to also, take the legal route.
And Prof, you raise a very important point, which the Zondo Commission report also raised, to say that at some point Parliament is going to have to talk about the towing of the party line. What does it look like? And what does it look like then when it comes to either the protection or how parties deal with members who then choose not to tow the party line, especially when it comes to accountability? The ANC tonight, through its chairperson, saying that it's going back to the structures to chart a way forward on the members that decided to vote with the opposition parties. I asked Sysman this one earlier on, and I'm keen to hear your thoughts on how this one is going to unfold.
No, very interesting move by the African National Congress. Remember, and I've also catch up on what Sysman have said, his latter statements, and I agree with him. You have to be very careful when you are a politician and a political party. You can't play into, and as much as we want the ANC, and I'm going to be brutally blunt here, if we were any other democratic country, the president will be gone by now. But this is South Africa. This is the way South African politics are playing out. But one thing that we should be very careful about, those who voted against, and we can mention them by name, it's public knowledge now. Dr. Nkosazana Zuma were very brave. Or Supra Mahomapelo, but we all know where they come from. I, in my sleep, will know where Supra Mahomapelo stands. And you can't make anything about that. It's still factional politics at play here. My question is, where were these dissenting voices during the past couple of years, when the very same things happened? They were mum. They were supporting the president of the day, and I don't condone to say that I now support the ANC MPs who are protecting the president. But we had to be very careful. They are not celebrities. They are not leaders that we should now suddenly embrace them, because tomorrow they will be doing the very same thing. They've got an agenda, and the agenda is to unseat President Cyril Ramaphosa so that they can take over. But they themselves are not what I will call ethical leaders who will stand the test of moral leaders, because based on how they've conducted themselves in the past.
And how then do we read this one, Prof? I'll come back to you, Sysman, in just a moment. How do we read this then in the context of what we're about to see unfold this weekend at the conference?
No, well, most definitely. As I've said, it's a very strategic move from the Cyril Ramaphosa camp. I don't know what is happening within the Integrity Committee because already you've got a case, it's a tit for tat, because you've got a Phala Phala report that will be tabled, and you also have the Digital Vibes report that will be tabled at that conference. So, and we all know who are vying for the presidency positions. It's due to President Cyril Ramaphosa and Dr. Zweli Mkhize. But believe me or not, it's not going to be end there, because the ANC now needs to show that they mean what they talk in taking disciplinary actions against those MPs. Because if they don't do that, they are sending a wrong message and a dangerous precedent, which I strongly believe that other ANC MPs will want to follow in future. And I don't think any party will condone that.
And Sysman, when it comes to what we've also seen in the public domain, when one reads that News 24 article, for example, where it quotes Zweli Mkhize, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, saying that there was a mafia-style approach when it comes to how things were being dealt with around the Phala Phala report, and at the same time, you then are seeing that these two reports, Digital Vibes, the Phala Phala, reports from the Integrity Commission are going to be tabled, and they're going to form part of the organizational report. Is the Integrity Commission of the ANC still wielding as much power as others think it does, or is it as toothless as others have been saying of it in recent times?
For me, when I looked at the interaction between Mr. Ramaphosa and the Integrity Committee, you see it is as if it is beholden to his dictates. They've been, in a way, begging him to appear before it. And when he appears before it, it's also in a manner that you report and you're not being held accountable. It's a collegial discussion around it. For me, if this committee were to be bold and it tables that report, you should say, because of the Digital Vibes, Mr. Mkhize is implicated, was aligned to certain aspects, and that integrity in him is not there. He should not proceed to contest any position. Mr. Ramaphosa, yourself also are implicated in Phala Phala. In a way, both of you are ineligible to contest in the spirit of renewal. But if it would to say Mr. Ramaphosa is cleared, Zweli is cleared, and then, or if Zweli is not allowed, which I doubt it would happen, Mr. Mkhize is now going to speak about this mafia style. It's about, I think, saying if the report comes out against him, he has already put it out there to say we were intimidated, the commission itself is intimidated, there is this culture of fear in terms of speaking up and standing against Mr. Ramaphosa.
All right.
Which is why maybe things are going his way.
An interesting week then ahead. Thank you so much to you both for your time. Do appreciate it. That is Professor Setulego Mathebesi, political analyst at the University of the Free State, as well as Sysman Motloung, of course, a political analyst there. Let's now take a recap of the headlines, and we'll continue to bring you more on the story.